Welcome to Ethics Matters. This is Professor Joe, and in this lecture series, we begin navigating the first chapter of our textbook, Ethics in General, to answer the greatest question of our lives, the fundamental question that echoes through every human heart, every community, and every civilization. How should we live our lives? This is the central question of ethics. Not simply a list of right and wrong behaviors, but a deep reflective inquiry into how we ought to live, what we ought to value, and who we ought to become. In a world full of conflicting values, hard decisions, and moral complexities, ethics provides more than answers. It provides a framework for reflection. It gives us the tools to think critically, act wisely, and live meaningfully. Let me start with definition. What is ethics? Ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, meaning character or custom. But ethics is more than cultural behavior. It is the philosophical investigation of morality, the study of what is good, right, just, and virtuous. It asks not only, what should I do, but also, why should I do it? And even more deeply, what kind of person should I be? Ethics is part of axiology. To situate ethics within philosophy, we turn to axiology, the study of values. Axiology explores two main areas: aesthetics, which reflects on beauty and art, and ethics, which reflects on human actions and their moral worth. Every choice we make, whether kind or cruel, selfish or generous, carries moral weight. Ethics helps us discern that weight and evaluate our actions not just by social norms, but by rational standards. Ethics is divided into two primary branches: theoretical ethics, meta-ethics, which is concerned with the nature and origin of moral values, and normative ethics, which focused on how we should live and what principles should guide our actions. Meta-ethics are concerned with the why of morality. Meta-ethics asks, are moral values objective or subjective? Is good something we feel, believe, or discover? Do moral truths exist beyond our opinions? Emotivism answers that moral claims are emotional expressions. Stealing is wrong simply means, I disapprove of stealing. Relativism claims that morality depends on individual or cultural context. There's ethical subjectivism, right for me, cultural relativism, right in my society, and religious relativism, right by God's command. But there's also universalist ethics, the belief that some moral truths, like human dignity and justice, transcend time and culture. These truths become the moral foundation for universal human rights. Why does meta-ethics matter? Because it clarifies the basis of our moral claims. It teaches us to distinguish between emotion, belief, and reason. It calls us to ask, am I acting from feeling, habit, culture, or from principle? In a pluralistic society where values clash, meta-ethics grounds us in thoughtful, reasoned moral reflection. The study on normative ethics is focused on the how of moral action. If meta-ethics asks why morality matters, normative ethics asks how we should live. These areas of ethics give us ethical frameworks like utilitarianism, which focuses on consequences and the greatest happiness of the many people possible. Deontology, which focuses on duty and moral obligation of our actions. Virtue ethics, which focuses on building good character through habit and moral formation. These areas of ethics then address most of real-life dilemmas. Should I lie to protect someone? Should I report a classmate for cheating? How should I treat strangers online? It brings morality into daily life, reminding us that the study of ethics is not abstract, it's practical. But how do we think through ethical choices? We need some skills in moral reasoning. Ethical reasoning involves three essential traits: clarity, understand the issue; evidence, base judgments on facts; consistency, apply principles fairly and logically. We use deductive reasoning to apply general principles to specific cases. We use inductive reasoning to draw conclusions from observed experiences, and we avoid logical fallacies such as ad hominem, attacking the person, appeal to popularity, what's common is not always right, false dilemmas, either or oversimplification. Sound reasoning keeps ethics honest and credible. Finally, we must distinguish between human acts and acts of man. Acts of man are involuntary, sneezing, blinking, or flinching. Human acts are chosen freely, with knowledge and intent. Only human acts carry moral significance. They are considered acts that are ethically evaluated. This distinction helps us understand responsibility. A person is not morally blameworthy for an involuntary action, but is accountable for a deliberate moral choice. So why do we study ethics? Because it teaches us not only how to act, but how to be. Ethics trains our minds to think carefully, our hearts to feel compassionately, and our wills to choose justly. It asks us to consider not just what we do, but who we are becoming. It reminds us that every decision is an opportunity for growth, for virtue, for justice. In this first chapter, we've explored the meaning and purpose of ethics, the structure of ethical theory, meta-ethics and normative ethics, the power of moral reasoning, the significance of intentional moral action. But this is only the beginning. Ethics is not just a subject of the course in philosophy, it is a way of life. And as we continue this journey together, I invite you to bring your questions, your stories, and your reflections. Because in learning ethics, we're not just becoming better thinkers, we're becoming better people. Thank you for joining me in this first step toward a more thoughtful and meaningful life. I will invite you again to join me in the next chapter, Understanding Moral Reasoning.